Hello, this is Sidleways, Episode 3, My First Mugging. I didn't mean to get mugged. In Ankh-Morpork, you're not supposed to get mugged, not without being scheduled, stamped in, sanctioned by the Thieves Guild. Normally you pay a small fee and they leave you alone. Consider it a subscription service. It's organized, civilized. But I hadn't gotten around to that yet or looked into how to register for tax exempt status because technically my entire bookshop is a magical item. It's worth a shot. I don't really intend to sell anything from the shop if I can help it. There might be something dangerous by Discworld standards or any world standards. And wizards are tax exempt, so why not a magical item? I was hoping there might be a form for that. I only wanted to buy a few things, parchment ink, something edible that wasn't on a stick. Maybe even try that bakery with the flaming signage and the goat on the roof. I still don't know if the goat's the baker. I had left the shop on previous days to locate provisions during the day, and although I was in the shades, those trips were uneventful. So I had been using some coins I found in a candy dish on my uncle's dresser for local currency, but I did need to find the safe eventually. He must have one somewhere. So I started looking around, and I did notice on the way that his journal had been enclosed. It was open when I went to bed. I think it was open. I was pretty sure it was open. And I hadn't read much. Well, not only was I too stressed, but the thing was written in some language I didn't recognize, and I had been putting it off. And now it's neatly shut, dead center on the desk, like it had put itself away. I stared at it. I hadn't seen the cover before, and it had a bas relief of my uncle's face on it. I mean, a dead ringer for Uncle Frank. His bald head was a bit of a landmark. He used to put something on it that smelled like summer and coconuts. Not to grow hair, just to get a nice shiny tan. Honestly, I think he was quite proud of it. Then my stomach growled, and I decided to go look for the safe in earnest. I found the safe in the back. It was ornate, covered in carvings. On the face of the safe, it had an inscription in glowing, elvish like looking script. Speak the word friend and enter. So I tried. Friend, nothing. Amigo, amig, Freund, ami, still nothing. And then I remembered movie night with Uncle Frank. We watched Lord of the Rings and that one scene when Gandalf's trying to open the door to Moria and he's supposedly saying friend in Elven. The subtitles and what I heard didn't match. I turned to him and said, "Did he just say melon?" He laughed so hard he spat out some of his homemade wine, and I squinted at the lock and clearly said the word melon, and it clicked open. Inside there was a mixed bag of, well, bags and other items, first editions, papers, and an old-timey leather coin purse that looked like it had definitely sat in a puddle of ale at least once in its lifespan. Each coin had the profile of the patrician, the good old Ankh-Morpork dollar. From the look of it, I had enough funds to stay comfortably for a while without selling a single book, which gave me time to figure out what was in my inventory and what might be dangerous. I found on the inside of the door sticky note from my uncle. I knew you'd figure it out. It was melon. Doesn't pay to be too obvious, which is pretty cute. So I grabbed the coin purse and a couple of those cute nylon foodie IKEA grocery bags I keep in my luggage when I travel and headed out to acquire my provisions. The shopping expedition was mostly uneventful, at least as uneventful as a fantasy city ever gets. Someone selling rats on a stick, that sort of thing. I was nearly back at the shop, arms full of groceries, and they stepped out of a darkened alley, blocking my path. Three men of mean appearance. every one of them armed and having spent hours practicing in a mirror of threatening glare. One of them said, "Your money or," and he didn't bother to finish the sentence. He was obviously the leader and felt too lazy to finish the threat. We can all imagine any number of terrible options after "your money or," right? So at least he didn't say something as cliche as, put 'em up. I worked the graveyard shift in a convenience stores when I was younger. You don't fight, you hand over the bag and let someone else file the report. I could always sell a book if I had to, I guess. I held it out, calm, practical. One of them grabbed my leather drawstring purse, and that's when Mona Lisa exploded out of the shadows like a sapient pearwood missile with pink floral embellishments. She bit him right on the hand. Clean, sharp, precise. I hope for his sake he let go quickly. We've all pinched a finger in something before, but this wasn't your average hinge. Then the momentum of the whole thing, Mona Lisa just kept going and barreled right into me. And I've been told watching me fall is oddly graceful, especially for a fat girl. I used to practice pratfalls as a kid to make my mom laugh. So I didn't panic, I just relaxed and let gravity take the wheel. But my foot got caught on something and my ankle twisted just a bit. Probably not a serious injury, but enough to make it difficult to pick up groceries and go back to my shop, which wasn't that far away. Of course, a couple tender spots on my backside suggested I'd be sore later. Probably a couple of bruises. By the time I sat up, Mona Lisa was already circling back, coin pouch held proudly in her lid like she'd gone hunting and come back with prey. I dread her bringing me dead birds as a present, but it's not like we haven't had that happen before with one of our family cats. The thieves were dazed. They had run right into an unmovable object, all three of them. Right in their path, all as a brick wall made out of meat, stood Captain Carrot. And so Captain Carrot says to me, "You all right?" And I nodded. He offered me a hand. Then he identified himself as Captain Carrot. Of course it was. It was rather obvious. Pratchett has this to say about Captain Carrot Iron Founderson. He said, Carrot often struck people as simple, and he was. Where people went wrong was thinking that simple meant the same thing as stupid. That's from the book Men-at-Arms. Captain Carrot, a walking legend, practically a myth. He could calm a riot with an appeal to someone's decency, talking to hardened criminals like they were just some unruly boys who needed to spend more time outside in the sunshine playing sports. Some say reality shapes itself just to avoid disappointing him. He helped me up. I limped. He noticed. He asked if it was my ankle. I told him it was just a twist and I'll be fine. Probably just need a Epsom soak and a rest. He mentioned to me that I was lucky, that the trunk didn't eat anyone. So I asked him, do I need insurance for that sort of thing? Like magical item coverage? Then he said, well, in this case, you're not at fault since they were unlicensed thieves. If the guild had caught them first, they'd be pushing up the daisies. I responded like I knew the tune. You mean joining the choir invisible? He followed up with, hopefully they won't be pining for the fjord. Then I had to ask him, do trunks made of sapient pearwood even come from somewhere with fjords? Then he said, honestly, I don't know. Not sure why I said that. It just popped into my head. I nodded. It must have been narrative entanglement, and I told him, don't worry about it. He then shrugged and said, fair enough. Need a hand getting back to your shop. And me being not too proud to let a man help me indoors after suffering shock and indignity, let him. Carrot, at one point, said this about the Thieves Guild. Oh yes, said Carrot. Can't go thieving in Ankh-Morpork without a guild permit. Not unless you've got a special talent. Why? What happens? What talent? She said. Well, like being able to survive being hung upside down from one of the gates with your ears nailed to your knees. said Carrot. That's terrible. Yes, I know, but the thing is, said Carrot, the thing is, it works. The whole thing. Guilds and organized crimes and everything, it all seems to work. That's from the book Men at Arms, also by Terry Pratchett. So, apparently, bad news travels fast. Not surprisingly, Carrot already knew about the shop landing here. He gave me an arm. I limped. Mona carried my shopping. I tried not to think too hard about whether my groceries were still intact. He helped me to my desk. I thought, no better time to ask about the Thieves Guild registration or possible tax exemption, but fate had other ideas. Carrot looks at me and says, did that book just start glowing? Not only was it glowing, but there was a magical susurrus. I told him that I hadn't really looked at it since the first day. It was not exactly readable, or in a language I recognized. Then I told Carrot, you know, it's strange. That face on the cover is a pretty good likeness of my Uncle Frank. It even smells a little bit like Bain de Soleil and red wine. Carrot gave me a questioning look, so I told him, it's like coconut suntan lotion and red wine. He nodded. The book opened itself to a fresh page. The words appeared in sharp and pointy magical-looking script. The word said, I would like to report a crime. Carrot not only knew this too, but knew where this was heading and asked, what kind of crime? And to my shock and sparking much interest from Carrot, it said, murder in all caps. Clearly it was yelling. Then it said, my murder. Great. Murder in the bookshop doesn't really have the same ring as murder in the library, or a body in the library, as it were, but it's still murder. Definitely not ideal. We couldn't get another response from the book after that, just a faint hum as if it was waiting. I asked Carrot, so how do you get a witness statement from a book? Carrot said, that's a good question. This one is new for the books. I guess we'll just have to find out. After a few failed attempts to get something out of the journal, Captain Carrot suggested that I get in touch with the local watch station when I had more information. I agreed that there was no point in beating a dead book, and he helped me in the kitchen and the pantry to put away my groceries. I wasn't completely able-bodied, so I was glad for the help. He commented that my stove, refrigerator, and appliances seemed unusual, and I explained that they were typical for where I was, except looked like they were out of the 1950s, and they didn't seem to be actually connected to anything. I figured they were just magical. They all had the initials BSJ on them. That's when he got really excited, as he had seen that before on the designs of Bloody Stupid Johnson, an inventor and engineer known for some of the most elaborate follies, gardening mistakes in one high-rent neighborhood with homes that bent time and space. He was notorious for measurement mistakes, as the Colossus of Morpork was to be found under a ball of cotton wool in the care of a man referred to as the caretaker of the monuments. He kept all the monuments in his pockets. On the subject of Bloody Stupid Johnson, whose real name was Bergholt Studley Johnson, there are quite a few items of interest that are mentioned in the books. The Ankh-Morpork Palace grounds were considered a high spot, if such could be called, of his career. For example, they contain the ornamental trout lake, 150 yards long, and because one of those trifling errors of notation that were such a distinctive feature of Bloody Stupid's design, 1 inch wide. That's from the book Moving Pictures. Which makes me wonder, is it a design flaw that my microwave, fridge, and stove all seem to work as expected because they aren't connected to any utilities? Or am I going to find out later that there's some serious problems with time and space in my fridge? This is the part where I tell you that if you want to know more about this setting and the things that I've mentioned from the books, Moving Pictures has quite a wonderful story. It's basically about film, and it's Terry Pratchett's story about that. And then because we're in Ankh-Morpork, we're going to spend a bit of time with the Sam Vine books, which include guards, men at arms, and a bunch of other books that are really great. They're kind of my favorite. Between the combination of the whole murder mystery thing, because I'm a big Agatha Christie fan, you have this sort of pulp detective thing going on with Sam Vimes, which we haven't met yet, but we will. And if you are interested in any of those stories by Terry Pratchett, please take a look at the books. They're just lovely, to be honest. So thank you so much for getting to the end of this. I'm working pretty hard to try to master all of the skill sets required to get this done. And it's been a bit of a learning experience, and I appreciate anyone who's given me a comment. There have been a few, and the encouragement has been lovely. I really appreciate anyone who's taken the time to listen to this. I know I'm kind of a novice. I would insert some self promotion here, but I mean, you know the drill. It's like, subscribe, whatever. And thank you for listening to Sidleways. In our next episode, we're going to spend a little bit more time in the bookshop and explore the denizens of some of the smaller areas of the shop.